back to another episode of Racco Strength and Fitness. We're on a roll here, so I just want to thank everyone who continues to check out my videos. I really do appreciate it. This is episode 6, potentially a controversial view of mine. If not really controversial, it'll definitely turn some heads. But I would like to talk to you a little bit about why I do not stretch. Now, to clarify, I'm talking specifically about static stretching. That's the kind where you bend down, hold a position for 10, 15, 30, 40, 50 seconds before relaxing. When we strength train, there's always a stretch component to our exercises. We call this the eccentric portion of the exercise, or where the muscle is being lengthened during the exercise. So I want to focus specifically on the static stretching part and why I, personally, do not do it. So first, let's get into a little anatomy. To really help paint the picture, every single muscle in the body has something called an origin and an insertion. These are points on the skeleton where the muscle begins, okay? Origin is the beginning point. Insertion is where it finishes. These points of origin and insertion, they're fixed, okay? They don't change, they don't move, barring some sort of catastrophic event or surgical intervention. They are where they are. Let's take the bicep, for example, okay? Bicep, by the way, 2. Bi means 2. Bicep has two origin points. The short head originates on the coracoid process of the scapula. The long head a little bit deeper on the supraglenoid tubercle, both of which are in the shoulder, and both of which will span the entire humerus and insert into the radius. So let's focus on the long head for now. As I just said, it originates on the supraglenoid tubercle. That's where it originates. That doesn't change. That doesn't move. So what's the point I'm trying to make here? The point is that every muscle in your body has a fixed starting and ending location, and no amount of stretching can or will change this. So now a question you may have. I've been stretching. I'm more flexible now than I was. This might not actually be as beneficial as we all once thought. Okay, your muscles have something called a stretch reflex. Now, without getting too technical, it's a built-in neurological reflex that prevents your muscles from lengthening too quickly, okay? It's a protection mechanism. Its purpose is to prevent hyperextension or too much stress on a joint. So again, what happens in a simple description, as a muscle lengthens, there are built-in sensors. These sensors send signals that say, all right, we're stretching really fast, we need to contract. It's to prevent that overstretching. Fun fact, there are documented cases of the stretch reflex completely going away in 80-year-old men who are, under anesthesia. So, 80-year-old men, typically thought of as, inflexible, under a full anesthetic, can be put into a full split, which means that the muscles have this capability of lengthening to a full capacity. It's just that our stretch reflexes, or their stretch reflexes, are preventing them from doing so because the body perceives that as, all right, this is a little bit dangerous. By continuously static stretching and becoming more flexible, what we're actually doing is just overriding our body's built-in defense mechanism to prevent this injury by overstretching. The next thing I want to address is a tight muscle theory, all right? So yes, just listening, a muscle's tight, I want to loosen it up by stretching. It makes sense, right? But if we dig a little deeper to understand why certain muscles are tight before we just start stretching all the time, this may not be always the best course of action. Now, obviously, we have to take this case by case. Nothing's ever 100% of the time, except for, what's the saying, death and taxes. But generally, muscles that are tight are weak. But Len, how is this true? My muscles are so tight that they're pulling on my body, they're wrenching my bones out of position, they're causing me pain and discomfort, and I can't move. That can't be a weak muscle. It must be very strong to do that. Well, here's what happens. If we look at the anatomy to truly understand what's going on, muscles connect bones together. Duh, right? We just talked about the origin and insertions. Muscles originate on one bone and they insert to another. This is how we move. So our bones, going back to our bicep originates in our shoulder, spans our upper arm, inserts into our forearm in the radius. Okay? This is how we move. In between these bones, we have something called joints. So the purpose of our muscles is to move our bones and our joints. Now this happens in two different directions, going back to our bicep. Okay, for the most part, our bicep's purpose is to flex our elbow. Okay, but now what? Our bicep can't lengthen on its own. We need something to pull it back. So is my arm stuck this way? No. Luckily, we have something called a tricep. Okay, tricep's job is to extend that joint. So they're two muscles around the same joint that have opposite purposes. We call these opposite muscles antagonistic muscles. The bicep and tricep in the arm, quads and hamstrings in the leg. These are probably the most recognizable pairings in the body, but they're all over. So what this does have to do with not stretching, going back to the weak and tight muscles, these antagonistic muscles should be similarly balanced in terms of strength. Now your quads will always be stronger than your hamstrings. First of all, there's more of them. There's 4 quads. But there should always be a certain strength balance ratio between these muscles around a joint. If one muscle group is far more dominant than its antagonist, the weaker muscle has to tighten and seize up to try and equal out this imbalance. Think of it this way. Stronger muscles have the ability to relax. They're strong. They don't have to work hard. They keep the body in balance. Weak muscles have to work harder just to do their job. So what does this mean? Well, this means that if you have a weak muscle that's seizing and causing you pain or discomfort, and now you're stretching and stretching and stretching and stretching, you might be exacerbating the problem. You're taking a weak point and you're making it weaker. When what you need to be doing is making it stronger. Think of your muscles like rubber bands, okay? Your muscles do have an elasticity to them, okay? They stretch, they kind of want to get back to a certain point. If you take a rubber band and stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch, it becomes deformed, right? It doesn't snap back like it's supposed to. It can't function properly. This has a similar effect on the muscles. Another example, again, this is not all the time, but a lot of the time, low back pain is not directly related to the back or any sort of trauma to the back. A lot of the time, it's weak hamstrings. Your hamstrings are made up of 3 muscles, okay? 2 of those originate on a point called the ischial tuberosity. And you can find this if you're sitting. Put your hand under your butt. It's that big, bony, lumpy muscle. Big, lumpy, bony bone that you sit on, okay? It's kind of like the anchor between the hips and the legs. So 2 of those 3 muscles of the hamstrings originate on the ischial tuberosity. So what did I just say about muscles when they're weak? You know, they seize. So if our hamstrings are weak, and now they're seizing, and now they're yanking on your hips, which is now the base for your entire rest of your upper body. So what if a building's base is all out of whack? It affects the whole structure. Same holds true for your body. So if your hips are now pulled out of their proper angle, that's going to affect every vertebral segment going all the way up, which now will probably attribute to low back pain. So now you've been told to stretch those weak hamstrings over and over and over and over again. You're probably making it worse when what you need to be doing is strengthening them. So now they're strong enough to relax. Remember guys, your body wants to be in balance. It wants to be able to relax. It wants to be strong. Please remember that this is not 100% of the cases all the time. There's always, exceptions to the rule. But from my personal experience, me as a human being and, as a personal trainer, I have found that a lot of muscle imbalance, pain, that kind of stuff comes from muscle weakness. This is not an attack on static stretching. This is just providing my experience and, a little bit of other evidence as to why I think it's not as beneficial as what people may have blown it up to be, and to just take your case individually. Alright guys, thank you very much for listening to me on my video. I hope you guys got something out of it. If you like what you saw, give it a like, give it a share, subscribe to the channel. That's all for me guys, alright? So, be safe, be healthy, and remember, grab the bull by the tusks.